at the end of the tour of the sewage treatment plant, after it goes through all this filtering, and they explained it all, they literally said, you can take a drink of the water that has been treated right from this spigot.
I'm going to go to the Culligan guy. Thank you.
They said back then, it was cleaner than what would come out of your tap at home.
I don't know about that.
It's the Scott and Alley Not For Air podcast. The rules are gone. The shirt is untucked. Here's Scott and Alley.
Wow. I have two really good questions for you for the Scott and Alley Not For Air podcast, and we welcome you.
Well, let's start with the first one.
All right. First question is this. I'm going to double your pay.
Okay.
All right. That's not really a question, but
Right.
Where
do I sign?
What career would you avoid even if it was double the pay?
Oh.
You're like, nope. And you and I are kind of money whores.
Uh-huh.
Because we don't have millions. I think maybe if we had millions, we'd be less of money whores. We might start saying no to more things.
I always my go-to is, well, at least I'm not picking up trash.
But really is that, that pays well from what I've seen, what I've heard too. Is that really that bad? I mean, you're going to get the occasional spill and you're going to get a little bit of stink, but you get to
a lot of stink.
You get to ride on the back of the truck.
I say that because my garbage smelled so bad this past week. And I just thought,
I've seen what you eat.
Right. But we're like really clean people. Mm-hmm. And we still had the stinkiest garbage. It had dog poop in there. There was shrimp tails in there. Ooh. The mixture of all that was...
Isn't that a new Disney movie, Shrimp Tails?
Shrimp tails. Woo. It was vile. I just can't imagine if I had to smell that every day.
Now, mine is similar, but before I tell you mine, and I would avoid it, even double the pay, I want you to think about some of these garbage companies have trucks. They barely get out of the truck.
I know.
The scoop does it all.
But the essence, it's still, isn't it close enough that you smell it? Another thing is my eyes water really bad when cutting onions. What if you worked at one of those manufacturers where they cut the onions and they put them in the containers and they're at the grocery store?
Yeah, right.
I could not do that. I would absolutely have to wear goggles all the time. Or what if you worked for the sriracha company? And you're constantly...
And if you're a boy and you got to go and take a pee, you better wash your hands first.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What if I got a cut on my finger because of whatever?
Oh, well, all right. So you're going to say a garbage person.
Yeah.
I think I could do that if it was double the pay, but I really want to work for the company that I get to sit in the trunk and the automatic arm comes out and does it. And I really only have to go pick up the garbage can for somebody I like.
Double the pay isn't enough.
The other one is and somebody had answered a meat packing plant worker.
Oh yeah,
okay.
That's a smell too.
Yeah, it is, but am I the one that's packing the ground beef? Like it's already been, like the cow's
slaughtered.
Been processed. It's like that's in a different part of the plant. Am I kind of the one that's stuffing a pound of ground beef in each thing that gets the plastic wrap around it? I could do that.
That's so satisfying.
I could do that.
I've seen something where the sleeve goes over the tube, and then it's bleh, and then the meat goes in the tube.
Bleh.
Yep, and then they tie it off.
Yeah,
and then the next one. That would be great.
I could do that. I could put T-bones on a styrofoam container and send it down the line.
Yes.
I mean, if it doubles the pay. I don't want any part of the cow slaughtering part of the job. Like, let that be on the other wall. I don't want any part of that whatsoever.
No, and I couldn't do it for the chickens either. Have you ever seen like the chicken videos?
Oh, yeah. That's
What the Health on Netflix.
You know what?
Oh, I can't.
If I had to pick, okay, so now I'm going to be a meat packer. If I mean, I know what you're thinking, better than a fudge.
We've thought it before.
Yeah, but okay, so if it came down to choosing the meat that I had to pack, I think it would be the beef plant on the other side of the slaughter wall. I want no part of that. I don't even want to hear a moo. I want nothing.
Nope.
I just want the meat coming through. I'm putting the steak. I'm almost at the butcher. Like the butcher's done the butchering. I'm just assembling steaks on the styrofoam.
Oh yeah, that's easy.
That would get, well, right. That's another nice part of the job. I could do that. Here's one though. The chicken, if I had to choose the meat, no, I couldn't do the chicken because I don't know why. Like, I have no problem eating chicken. I love chicken, but it seems messier because they're smaller and they're built different than like does this make sense?
And always slimier.
Oh.
And I've noticed too, anytime that we have gotten chicken recently, there is this unusual smell, and we get it from the good grocery store. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there is this weird smell that comes with it.
Oh, that is weird.
Yes. I don't know what it is. So my thing is,
by the way, I don't think that good grocery store, I know the one you're talking about, not to be named at this, I don't think their chicken or their eggs are the best that are out there. I wish they would get new distributors because their chicken breasts are always tough. Even, it doesn't matter when. Always.
Do you notice that all of mine are smell related?
Yes.
And it's weird because I love sniffing my boyfriend's armpits. So
That is so weird.
After he's played hockey, I'll take a good whiff.
Oh.
So
well, all right.
why is it
Pheromones play a part of attraction. I get it.
But smelling meat, smelling garbage, no.
All right. Here's one I couldn't do, and I still haven't told you what I would do. Well, no, I would avoid it. And I'm sorry, not what I would do, but I would avoid it. I couldn't do this one either. Commercial fishermen, not because of the smell, because I would be puking overboard with the waves. You ever watch that like Wicked Tuna or whatever?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Why is it never smooth on the water? Why are they always in a storm of the century? The boat's going to get sucked to the bottom of the ocean. Why can't you just be on nice glassy water fishing all day long?
I could do this because think about this. I went whitewater rafting, last year? So much fun. I absolutely don't mind waves that are sloshing me around.
But that's a smaller boat. There's something about the motion on a...
Also, I feel like freshwater fish, that smell is not overpoweringly terrible. It's not like the shrimp tails that were in my garbage that have been sitting there for 4 days.
I don't think the stuff that comes out of the ocean, specifically those fish, I'm sure they have a bit of a fish smell, like an ocean smell.
Right.
I think it's when you split them down or you shrimp the shrimp tails, whatever the hell you got to do.
Yeah.
That's when I think the smell starts to produce itself. I think fresh out of the water, it smells like you took something out of the water. It doesn't smell fishy.
It's
sort of fishy, but not like bad fishy.
It's washed.
Yes.
And also, speaking of that, you know in Seattle where they're at the fish market?
Yeah.
I almost said the fish market.
Fish.
When they're at the fish market and they're throwing the fish and they catch them in the paper.
Yeah.
That I could do too. That seems so much fun to me.
Moving the fish along.
Yes.
Now, the job that I would not be able to do for double the pay, I could not work the sewage treatment plant. I've been through. I'll never forget this.
I could. Can't smell garbage.
Accustomed to that smell?
Yeah, can't smell garbage but poop.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I've changed 10 billion diapers. Doesn't bother me. I've pooped my entire life. I might take one more later today.
I've got it on my finger from time to time.
Sure. I picked up dog poop. It's weird.
Yeah.
All this surrounding myself of poop, but yet I don't want to work the plant. And I'll tell you why. There's one particular part of the plant that would just get me. So I remember as a Boy Scout going through a sewage treatment plant in the town of Tonawanda, Buffalo, New York, when I was a kid. Maybe it's changed, but boy, this stuck with me. I want you to imagine an Olympic-sized swimming pool, maybe bigger and deeper, and all the sludge that comes in has to go through these giant screens. And when I'm talking screens, we're talking...
Filtering that fecal.
Yeah. We're talking... So what's left in the pool is essentially... the diarrhea of all the poop because
you saw my corn from the night before.
Oh yeah, because what's left in the screens are the tampons, the condoms, the everything else that's in there. So you have that to be the person that has to go clean out those screens has got to be the most god awful thing on the planet. And then you have to walk this huge room where it literally is a swimming pool of nothing but explosive diarrhea looking and just the whole thing. Now, what was really freaky, at the end of the tour of the sewage treatment plant, after it goes through all this filtering, and they explained it all. They literally said, you can take a drink of the water that has been treated right from this spigot.
I'm going to go to the Culligan guy. Thank you.
They say, and they said back then, it was cleaner than what would come out of your tap at home.
I don't know about that.
I'm telling you, I couldn't. There's just no way.
No, thank you.
No
this
way.
This peer pressure feels like elementary school all over again. It's okay. You can jump over the side of the edge of this building. It'll be fine. No, not doing that.
Yeah.
How do you get that job even?
What, the sewage treatment?
Yeah. Is that something where your family's always done it? Same with the garbage truck. Your family's done it, and so you do it. I've never met anybody who's honestly applied for that job.
Well, I can't say I've met someone that's applied for it,
Mm-hmm.
but you're a utility worker of sorts. You're working probably for the county or for the town.
Yes.
You know that's good benefits. Those are the kind of people that are like, well, that's a good benefit. I don't want to miss out on that because, you retire, the whole thing is...
I should be able to retire early. And the thing with the poop plant is, when you get a little bit of poop, it might be on the tip of your finger, perhaps. And the rest of the day, that is all you smell. This happened to my cousin once. She kept smelling poop, and then figured out it was like the tip of her finger and just kept smelling it.
Oh,
and
how do you miss it there?
I would think that if I'm smelling this poop that all day long, I couldn't get it out of my nose.
Yeah,
also, if I'm married or dating somebody who is also around the fecal matter, that they will always smell poop on me.
Yeah, you're going to come home and those boots are going to sit outside the house.
Yeah, they have to. Or like, let's say you have a garage. Your garage is always going to smell like shiz.
And here's a question. I'm pretty sure they're enforced to wear hard hats at the sewage treatment plant. At what point was it going to be raining shit and I needed it and my head needed protection? I'm thinking
That's a big crap.
On a construction site, you're cutting trees, you're hanging power lines, hard hat, good.
Steel beams.
Yeah, steel beams, exactly. The sewage treatment plant, I mean, is a flying turd coming my way?
Well, isn't it the same as the little, not riddle, but the thing that you would learn in school? They would say, which is heavier, 100 pounds of feathers or 100 pounds of nickel.
Yeah.
And it's the same.
It's the same.
Even though in your mind you think so. With fecal matter,
is it the same with shit? Because if it's raining shit, it may be 100 pounds, but it feels more spread out than like nickel.
Yes. And that's the other thing. You're gonna find it like in your ear.
Oh God!
And just everywhere. All of a sudden, you're trying to get sexy with your partner, and
but good retirement plans. Come on, remember, you get to retire at 50, and you got everything paid for.
Their reaction is, "Do you smell that? Like you just can't get rid of the smell of poop."
No.
I will tell you one more job that I wouldn't want to do, but only because my grandfather did it and he told me that it was terrible. He was a coal miner.
Oh, yeah, that's awful.
Terrible for the lungs.
Actually, it's a miracle your grandfather lived as long as he did because, that's got a short lifespan. You're breathing stuff in that. Whew.
Yeah, well, he got out early. So he got out in his 20s and then moved to Ohio and worked for Ford. But yes. Okay, so what's your second question?
Oh, the second question. All right, this one's a little bit deeper. I want you to go back to you're just starting to date someone. Mm-hmm. They tell you that they're in therapy, but they don't tell you what for. Oh. Do you break up or do you stay?
Stay.
Really? You?
Yes.
You?
Yes.
Because I'm like sitting here going, this is going to be tough for her because she has to know what it is.
Yes, but I'm absolutely going to stay because I know that they're working on themselves and that they have the tools to do it, as opposed to whatever the problem was, and they're not going to fix it.
I would say, and I guess I'm going to phrase it by asking you more questions about this.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm in therapy, but don't ask me what for. I don't want to talk about it.
Eventually, I'm going to find out.
Well, maybe, but your son. What's your immediate reaction? Your immediate reaction is you're going to try everything to find out what it's about.
Yes, absolutely. Especially because...
And then I'm going to say, this is why I'm in therapy. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm trying to get to know you, And I can understand them not wanting to give up all the information about themselves right away, but I'm trying to get to know you.
Usually if you're in therapy, it's a heavy duty. It's not, some people go to therapy just to have, someone to talk to and make sure that everything's aimed in the right way. But I look at that more like you've done the hard work. You're maintaining, you're continuing. You want to stay on a good path and you want to do that. If you're actively heavy in therapy, there's a reason.
Yes. And think about what it can affect too. I'm just going to throw out this random hypothetical. What if you're in therapy for some childhood trauma of sexual assaults and you don't trust people in a sexual way? Then that is going to affect your relationship. It sucks that they're not telling you because then, and I'm not saying that everything's about sex, but I'm just saying that eventually I want to connect with you in that way. You have to be a very big person to connect with somebody who has to really go at it very slow or might not trust you, or you might be in certain situations and they're like, I'm just not ready yet or whatever. So I think that that's what makes it tough too, because if you don't know the situation, then how do I know how to navigate it too? This is also just another excuse for me to find out what's really going on because I can't stand that I don't know what's going on.
And there it is. And that's why your answer of you would stay without knowing why they were in therapy surprised me. Now, I, like you, am very much in the process of, you're doing something to hopefully better yourself, to, improve whatever your mental and emotional state is. I'm happy for it.
Yes.
But I got to be honest. I think mentally I would put in my mind a time limit of if I didn't know, then it's going to have to be a step away. Number one, you got to get to a point of trust with someone, and they've got to be able to trust you enough to say, I'm in therapy for this. If they're not willing to, if they're willing to share with you why they're in therapy, but not why they're in therapy, that's sort of like saying, I sort of trust you, but I don't yet. Now, it's early in a relationship.
Yeah.
I understand it's early in a relationship, and trust is something that's built. It is earned. There's always the expression, trust is earned, and trust is extremely easy to lose. And let me tell you, once in my book now, the person that I've become, you lose my trust once, it is going to be damn near impossible to reclaim it. Now, I'm not saying that it's impossible because I haven't been in a situation where someone's tried for me to reclaim their trust, but I can tell you, I've had a bit of an awakening. We're not going down a road like that again in my life. That being said, it would greatly bother me to not know why you're in therapy, even if it's nothing more than you saying, I'm in therapy because I have some anger issues when it comes to my boss. Well, see now.
Oh, okay, but it's your boss.
But well, here's the thing.
Don't we all?
This is the catch-22. You want to say you're happy they're in therapy. You want to know why they're in therapy, but then as soon as I said, and I used an example of an anger issue, I have no idea. It could be anything. Could have been what you said. Could have been, something sexual that happened when they were a child. Could have been something traumatic. One of their parents died suddenly in a freak car accident. Could have been anything.
Yeah.
You are going to feel a certain way by not knowing. Your reaction right there, when I just used an anger thing, was very poignant.
Yes,
you're going to have different levels of what you're going to accept. I think you need to know. I really think you need to know why they're in therapy. Maybe not details.
Now I'm changing my mind because you're right. If it's, let's say it is anger, well then I'm sorry, but I've been down that road before.
Yep.
I don't want to revisit that road.
Your trust was taken, so
It
now it's tough
was.
to re-earn. Yes. Yes. And I'm with you. I think anyone that can do something to better themselves, that's great. But I'm going to tell you what my therapist once said. Well, they found the door, meaning about someone else. In other words, the person that was going, and I was referring to one of the reasons I was in therapy, dealt with someone else that supposedly was in therapy. And my therapist said, well, they went as far as finding the door. Did they do what was necessary once they entered the door of the therapist? In other words, there's work to be done, or, well, every therapy is a little bit different. Sometimes you have conversations. It's based more on that. Sometimes you get, certain assignments you have to do to mentally or emotionally stabilize yourself or work on things or count to 10. You know what I'm saying? So how do you know they're not just finding the door?
Okay, yeah. And like saying, well, yeah, I'm going to therapy, but maybe it's not as much as they need even. I think that when it comes to therapy as well and this is so funny. Of course I want you to improve, but there are certain topics for me that I just have very little give. You know, I think that I am really forgiving in relationships. I think that my past relationships speak volumes to that I've been very forgiving and very trusting. And, I want to be, but unfortunately, when you get slapped so many times, and I don't mean physically, I mean just, as a euphemism.
Emotionally.
Yes, a euphemism. That you get slapped so many times that you kind of do put things in these boxes like, okay, if you're going to therapy for, your parents dying, oh, I'm so empathetic.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
If you're going to therapy because you slapped your significant other around, I'm not going to be there to experience the relapse, even though they may never relapse ever again.
Oh, the potential's always there for any sort of a situation when it comes to a potential relapse.
But you want to know what? So speaking of that, so my cousin, she is a former addict and she's married to a former addict. And I'm not just saying, not that there's really no level as far as pills and things like that, but he used to do meth. And whenever they got together, a lot of the rumblings of the family was like, oh, he used to do meth. And, what's going to happen? Is he going to do it again? Is he going to relapse? And I was the one at the time, I said, you can't put a scarlet letter on him. He can't be living with this the rest of his life. They've been together for, let's see, Zach and I've been together for 5 years. I think they've been together around 5 years. He's never relapsed. He is a wonderful human being. And now everyone loves him. They're obsessed with him. Our whole family adores him. So that's really tough too, because you do have that person. I don't know if I could be with a former meth addict, but my cousin, sure, she worked through it.
Well, I'm gonna be very honest with you on an opinion on that, and I mean no disrespect to anyone in your family. It scares me when two people that have similar pasts like that partner up. There could be an argument of, well, they have found a way to rely on each other to stay strong enough not to do it. There is a word for that called codependency. So that's scary, because if something happens to one of them, does the other one fall apart? In other words, the one that was the meth user, God forbid he went into the hospital, fell into a coma. These are extremes. I don't wish this.
Right.
Does your cousin then go, oh my God, the person that I was drawing strength from or perceived to is now having problems? Do they fall back to bad habits, old habits?
But hers was pills and booze.
Whichever. And it may happen. It's dangerous. There is an expression called new places, new people, new things. But if you don't do 100% of that, i.e., complete change. In other words, your cousin is with a in recovery addict at this point right now, but it's not really a new thing. In other words, it's not a total change. Inside them is still some of that monster that could reawaken at any time. Same with your cousin. So I'm not saying they needed to individually go become Buddhist monks, but that's a complete change, and it's one of those things I would stand back and I would say, I think it's great you're having this period and this, I'll call it a season of sobriety, and my God, I hope it lasts for you, but it's not really a new place, new people, new thing, because might have been a new people, but they're into the same or similar things you were. And there are comparisons that can be made. Maybe that's how they stay strong for each other. They share some of those stories, or they can, who knows, maybe they go to a bunch of therapy to be able to stay ahead of it.
Yeah.
But it's not really a new thing, or, I mean, yes, in the people sense, it's a different person from who they may have been with in the past. But the situation ain't really that different, except for right now, they're in a season of sobriety, but it's too close for me. I could not do that. I could not be around that myself.
Yeah, I think that, and I'm saying I think because I can't speak for them, but I would say
Excuse me.
99.9% of me says that in their mind, they are new because they met at AA. There's a lot of A's there. They met at AA.
13 step in it.
Yes. Yeah. So but it's an AA that came out of their church. So for them, the religion.
Honey, they're all in the basement of the church.
I know. But this one is actually, it goes through AA, but they call it Raising Hope, I think.
Okay.
Anyway, so in their faith, their religion is that you're a new person. So for them, that's what I'm saying. I'm going to say 99.9% of me will say this. I can't totally speak for them, but they feel and believe that they are new. That is 1,000%.
I myself could not trust it. To me, it's just too close to it.
We didn't either. Well, okay, not me. I was the one that said no scarlet letter. But no, everyone else is like, no way. She is gonna slip back.
And they said that about her because they probably didn't know him that well. What if he's the one that decides to slip back? And I don't wish that upon anyone.
No, I think the thing was them both. That just came up in conversation. Will he, will she, will they?
Oh, they're legitimate questions.
Yeah.
For me, I couldn't go down that road. Like I said, it does not, if you completely change everything.
Yeah.
Then I think you're there. Then you're in a different place.
And you and I are in the same when it comes to somebody with anger issues. I couldn't go down that road again. So now I changed my mind. I need to know why you're in therapy.
Yeah, I think you do.
If you can't tell me.
Well, and there's ways to do it. I think the way that I asked the question, and I literally said, you're dating someone who tells you they're in therapy, but they don't tell you what for. Do you break up or do you stay? There are ways to tell certain things. You might be able to get around if you're thinking about it. You need to go create a scenario. I'll come up with it. Yeah, why am I in therapy? Well, give me something from my past.
Okay,
not my past, but just make it up.
Okay. So you were in therapy because as a child, I'm always, do you want it to be child, teenager?
No, I'd really rather have it be more adult.
Okay. So you are 24. And
I know I look it. Thank you very much.
Your significant other died in a car accident.
Okay.
Do you want to say anything else?
That's all I got. That's all I need. Okay. So if I were to go to you and say, listen, every Tuesday night at 8, I go see a therapist. And I do that because I had a really, really tough loss that just stripped away a lot of who I was at that point in my life. And it was so sudden and so difficult. And I do it because, I want to really learn how to deal with grief. You don't need to know the gory details, because if I told you at 24, I lost a girlfriend in a car accident. She was out with her girlfriends and they went out on a girls' night out. She flipped the car because, they were maybe doing something behind the wheel they shouldn't have been doing after a girls' night out. And, your reaction might be, and I don't mean it to be insensitive, but you might be like, well, that means you're not over her and not really into me. And I could understand you feeling that way.
Yep.
But in reality, sometimes things are ripped away from you in a way that you're just so unprepared for it. It's not that I'm still into her in that way, but how do I explain that to you?
Right.
How do I get you to accept it?
Well, and that does have to come with time. I think if you start with just the loss part, then that makes sense. And then I'll find out who it is later and all of that.
Yeah.
Because the other thing too is I have a family member who is in grief counseling right now.
Okay.
And the person hasn't died yet. So.
Oh, that's preemptive.
Yes.
But
that's a whole crazy story too.
Okay. Now, I know nothing about it. I'm only predicting that they're doing this because they know what's coming and they're having a hard time right now knowing what's coming.
Yeah. And I think that they are preparing for it. So I think with this case, let's pretend your fiance or girlfriend at 23 died. Even if you didn't go to to grief counseling right away, but then you decided to, let's say 10 years later, it might be that you were having some internal struggles and somebody finally said, you need to go to grief counseling because you never dealt with the root of the issue.
Right.
So I think it's not even just, oh, Scott's not over that person. It's just he never dealt with that.
Right,
and
but
that's where I think that's a huge difference too.
But I also do think a lot of human nature is the new significant other would be, what's the problem? Am I not good enough to get there? Okay, let me ask one last question on this same vein. Okay.
Yep.
Now, your new boyfriend is in therapy to work on anger management.
Yes.
Not in the sense that it's the worst in the world, but they want to be better at dealing with situations or arguments. Let's say their previous relationship was just one nonstop needling and they were a snapper. Like they got to a point where they just couldn't take it anymore. What if the person you're with now says, hey, every Tuesday night I go to therapy. Would you consider joining me next Tuesday so I can share something with you?
Oh,
you're there.
I would love that.
You're there. Yes. And then I share with you, okay, I've been working through this. She used to just nonstop grill me. And unfortunately, when, arguments would happen, it always, fault to both, would escalate to a certain level. Are you better with that? Because we've been dancing around heavy stuff by saying grief. I'm not saying grief's not heavy. Holy shit. But you know what I'm saying. We've been dancing around easier things to explain. That one's a tough one. Would you still consider being with them?
I would if they brought me into the fold. Absolutely. And you had said the reference of the relationship. And this is where like anger is so hard because I think that somebody could be angry. Now I'm going to name 3 things that are completely unrelated, but maybe your anger is A, a loss, or B, it is, in my opinion, I think sometimes it can be a genetic thing. So where you do have a chemical imbalance of some sort. So then, because I would, of course I'm going to think of this in my life, like the person that I was with who was very angry, he did suffer a loss really early in life and never dealt with it. A loss of a parent and never dealt with it. And I think that was a big part of it. So there's this part of me, not that I ever want to get back with that person, but there's this part of me that's like, man, if we would have dealt with that together, then I think that the outcome could have been different. It wasn't, and that's fine, but it could have been.
Okay. I mean,
because then we could navigate it together. Like, I think that I
think that's the only way around not telling you right away in the kitchen that I go to therapy every Tuesday night. I think by not telling you that in the beginning, finding a way to include you is probably the best way to deal with it.
Also, I think that there's strength like as a team.
Sure.
And believe me, I operate very well solo. If I didn't meet Zach, I probably would still be single and loving life, But at the same time, whenever there is team efforts, I think that there's such a strength in that. And so for us to do it together just says, you know what, we're like, like 2 hands that they're holding, it's tight, right? Or like there's that bond there that I'm trying not to break it. So that's why I think including somebody, you're tightening the bond. You're like sewing the stitch.
Yeah, I would agree to a point. I would partly agree by saying the team effort, it really depends on the situation. Tying back to what we said about if you're 2 addicts and you're together, ooh, boy, does that feels like I'm skating on some thin ice. You know what I'm saying?
But I really hope that, and I don't know the ins and outs of my cousin's marriage, but it always just seems wonderful. And she talks about him, her and I talk so personally, but I think that there really is like a stitch that they're just so bonded, so tight that it's really like leather. Like nothing is gonna break that leather, those 2 leather pieces apart.
Well, I hope that that's true. I think though that's the best way to deal with it is, if you're gonna tell somebody you're in therapy, but you're not gonna tell them why, then at some point real soon, Include them in some way so you can share what's going on. Also creates a buffer. Also very much creates a buffer, specifically if it's an anger thing. By doing it with that therapist or whatnot, you can see firsthand, and I'm sorry, aren't we all in a situation we don't want to be blindly in love? We need to see with our eyes open what we're doing. Mistakes happen when you're blindly in love. Got to have those eyes open to see how the therapist is reacting or helping them through telling you what is going on. Maybe not every gory detail. The whole point to it is you're not going to get every gory detail. That's for me and for my therapist. You need to know enough to be able to feel comfortable and say, I'm okay with this. I'm ready to continue.
The blind love sounds like young love. You're talking about having a bit of a roadmap. And if we do end up getting off at a different exit along the way, maybe for a little adventure or something like that, it's not going to be the end.
Does that mean taking a break like Friends?
No.
Sounded like that for a minute.
No, I mean, like getting off at the exit could be many things. It could be there's a bump in the road, but I even think taking the exit could be a fun adventure as well. Not something you plan for a kid. Okay.
Oh, sure.
A kid, it can be something.
Put you on a different highway.
Right. Exactly. So there is the map, but there might be a different exit that just came along the way. And you're like, oh, you know what? Let me get off that exit instead.
Sure.
So I see where you want to have a map. I can understand that.
Well, I'm saying more so I want you to be able to see as you're being told if it is something very serious. Well, anybody that I don't want to downplay. If you're going to therapy, in your mind, you feel it's serious, whatever the situation is. Doesn't matter what it is. The other person is going to have their own list in their head of what they feel is serious versus what is less serious.
I think that you would gain an understanding of each other in a way that probably I can't necessarily always say straight to you at the beginning of a relationship. When I say it in front of a therapist, sometimes the therapist, I know that anytime I've ever gone to a therapist, like it's the same as when I go to a tattoo artist. I'm like, so here's what I'm trying to say, or here's what I want. And then they just make it happen, and it's beautiful and wonderful. So like I'll say something to a therapist and she retorts back and gives it in a different understanding or paints the picture so beautifully. And it's like, yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, that's what I needed. Yeah. I needed you in my argument to be able to say those words. Let me tell you, that is the truth right there. It's the classic, I wish I would have thought of that line 30 minutes after an argument, you would have won it.
Yes.
God,
and
that's
there's
funny.
just times that even if you're just going together and you're towards the beginning and it's just articulating things that sometimes are so hard to articulate, blah, 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 as I can't do it. It's so hard to, especially at the beginning, you're like a, you're like a new fish.
All of a sudden, the new relationship you're in, they go, hey, you know what? I think we should go to therapy together. Almost right away. Like, you want to be with this person. Yeah. You're like, yeah, I really have a very strong connection here. And then they say, let's go to therapy together. Let's get it right. Do you stay or do you go?
I'm going to, if I feel it, then I'm going to do it.
You're going to do it.
It's funny because at the beginning of our mine and Zach's relationship, I had brought it up and many people were like, oh, wait a second, but you guys are pretty early on. And I was like, yeah, but why not?
I got a great answer for this.
And the reason why I had said it was because we are two totally different people. We're also two people who have lived independently for quite some time. So we're both a little stubborn, a little bullheaded. And we didn't even fight the first year and a half. I saved that for when we moved in.
Had a girl. That's when you do it.
Yes.
Yep, when you can't get away.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think that it's good for all phases in your life, though, too. And I've talked about this as well. One of my cousins, he says him and his wife, even if they're not regularly going to therapy, they will do like touch points because they have now 4 children. So, you're going from...
How do you think they got the 4 children? Touch points.
Right, exactly. Dating, engaged, children, or child 1, child 2, child 3, child 4. So he does it as a touch point.
So I will freely admit to you, 6059 and I have done and did even very early on go to therapy together. And my answer,
she's still with you.
Yes, it's shocking. No, can I tell you the real answer to it is?
Sure.
And I looked her dead in the eyes and I said this. I said, I've been involved with getting it wrong too many times. I don't want to get it wrong. I don't want to get it wrong anymore.
There you go.
I just don't want to get it wrong anymore. And I even said, I'm like, I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. Her response was, well, if everyone lived the way I did, the world would be a better place. I said, good point.
Yes.
But you know, I really did. I'm like, I don't want to get it wrong because I'm just sick of that. It's not that it's time is running short. I'm just sick of not, I don't know if I picked the wrong person. I don't know if I've been taken advantage of in the past. I don't know, what it is. I mean, it just, I don't want to get it wrong.
Well, I don't know if you can answer this question or not, but was she a little hesitant at first?
No, I don't think so.
She never thought, well, this is...
No, because also she had gone through a breakup. She stayed single, she did not stay in she was not in a committed relationship for a number of years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously there were other people in her life.
Oh,
but,
yeah. Fun.
Sure. But, I think both of us were like, wow, if we're gonna take this step, let's get it right. For the love of God, just enough. That throw your hands up, enough. I can't anymore, No more of the screw ups.
That's definitely, I think, an adult, older relationship thing too. Because I can't imagine a 23-year-old going, do you want to go to therapy together?
No, you're lost in the moment. Yeah, 23, you're looking to just screw. I mean, how long are you going to be around, and are you good at what? Do you tickle my fancy?
Exactly. Exactly. Oh my!
Wow,
goodness.
there's a high note to end it on.
For sure. All right.
Congratulations if you're 23. That's all you're looking for, sex.
Oh my gosh, good for you. Go get it.
Good for you.
Yes, I love that for you.
All in.
Yes.
All right, we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Well, that was fun. Wasn't that fun? That was fun. Do us a favor, will you? Subscribe. Share the Scott and Alley Not for Air podcast. Touch our buttons. We know you want to.